Good. Well, welcome to Prep Skills in week 7, everybody. This week, we're focusing on a communication skill, an oral presentation. So you might want to think about it as another way of communicating and fulfilling that enabling attribute of communication, because it is a very important part of professional communication, not just about presenting things as a student. So I love this image. It's from a Talking Heads album way back in the day. And yeah, this is what we'd like you to be for these oral presentations, a talking head, if you like. But before we go any further, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we're all living, working and learning on, and I pay my respects to the First Nations people and their elders past, present and future. So, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number 2 is death. Death is number 2. Does that sound right? Mind you, this is reported by Jerry Seinfeld. I think the research is correct, but Jerry Seinfeld. So he also follows up this bit by saying, this means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. So most people would be rather die than give an oral presentation. It's a common fear. So thinking about that, today we're going to focus on why we have this in prep skills. We'll have a little bit of a chat about how this comes from cultural traditions. We'll have a think about some famous speeches and their impact. And then we'll look at some tips for oral presentations, tips for using visual content with your oral presentations. And as those of you who have previewed this unit, your task in prep skills related to oral presentations. So why are we doing this? Pop an idea in the chat. Why are we focusing on oral presentations in preparation skills for university? I'll just give you a minute to think. Spite, says Rory. Yes, Brock, to develop our communication skills, gain confidence, and building confidence is really one of the most important parts or aspects for prep skills.
Studies.
Beg your pardon, Lois?
Sorry, future studies, to prepare for future studies and overcome fear.
That's right. And no, we're not doing it out of spite. We're not doing it to punish you. We want you to build confidence so that you can get better at it, okay? But thank you for all of those honest comments in the chat. So it's really important for your communication skills development for undergraduate studies, but also in STEPS. So as I said before, it helps you meet or build your skills in the enabling graduate attributes. Thanks, Kyle. And it's really important in the workforce. So you might be in the workforce, you might be a trainer, you might have to think about your audience and the purpose for the information that you're conveying. You might have to present something at a staff meeting. You might just need to talk to a smaller group of people about what you're doing and why. So having these skills and practicing them will give you more confidence as you go forward. And it's an important life skill too. I think that we've all been in a position in our personal circumstances where we've had to give a speech, or down the track, you might too. So weddings, funerals, 21sts, christenings, all of those life rituals might put us in a position where we need to be speaking publicly. So we all come from a lineage that has oral presentations incorporated in it. Indigenous cultures all use oral skills to present culture and to hand on information to future generations or the next generation. And we've all come from a lineage where that has taken place. So it's built in our DNA, all of us. So there's First Nations people use the dreaming and storytelling to convey really important, significant cultural things, and education in Western societies too also rely on verbal communication to convey information. We know that from looking at the verbal learners in week 3, how education is focused more on verbal communication. So here are some images of some people who have given some famous speeches. Can any of you identify some of these people and maybe a brief content about the type of speech that they made or the content of that speech? I'll give you a second to look and think and type. Yeah, Dylan, absolutely. Each one of these people gave an inspirational speech. Yes, Martin Luther King Jr., well recognised. Do you recognise the local person? Yes, Brock. Julia Gillard gave Tony Abbott a good talking to about misogyny. Absolutely. 2012, maybe. Great. So, Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream, was the beginning of his, or part of his very long speech about civil rights in America. Then we have the Mahatma Gandhi. We must purge ourselves of hatred. So that was part of the long walk, the salt walk, and independence of India. Julia Gillard with the misogyny speech. This kind of hypocrisy must not be tolerated. You still feel her fire. And then Barack Obama, yes, we can, with his victory speech, but also how it led through from his campaign, his campaign slogans. So what we'd like you to do, then this video is available on Moodle, is think about how speeches can be inspirational, but they can also be instructional. They can also be quite stressful. So this particular speech that we've got for you on Moodle helps you to think about, or first of all, gives you a demonstration about a well-presented speech or talk. It shifts your thinking about a talk as being an inspirational, hallmark, grand speech for everyone to listen to and hang on to every word. An instructional speech gives you advice, but this particular advice is useful for your presentations too. It's about how you use your body language, but also how you can influence and be really intentional about your body language to change your energy and your mood and your approach to your speech. So I recommend that you look at this one closely. So a speech can be inspirational, yes, but it also can be instructional. So what makes a speech memorable? Time for the chat again, people. Is there a particular speech that's stuck with you, or is there something that you would put into how you present a speech that would make it stick? Passion, nice. Something that makes us want to act and make change. Very good. Relatable, exactly. Very good.
Brock's got moments that create understanding of purpose. So there's mic drops or emphasis, I guess.
Great.
Robin talks about that if it's relatable to something that you are doing or feel passionate about.
Good. And that brings us to a really important point, Lois. Thank you. That like everything that we do when we communicate, especially at university, whether it's written or whether it's spoken, we have to think about our audience and our purpose. So being relatable to the audience is really important. If you're speaking above the audience's interest level or capacity, then it's not going to have impact. If you're speaking below the audience's capacity, then it's going to be boring. So you need to think about the audience and your purpose. Are you here to inspire and inspire change? Or are you here to give information? Are you here to tell people a process? Be very clear about your audience and your purpose. So the other things that we need to think about is what makes them memorable. So they might be, as you've said in the chat, inspiring. They might be funny, entertaining, honest. They might be sharing a particular wisdom or an experience. They often have a confident delivery. So that video that we've just shared that's on Moodle will be helpful. And more often than not, especially in those examples that we've just given you, they have particular historical significance. What does that mean for you? And you can tell by the way I'm talking that there's a task for you embedded within this unit, this module. What do you think makes a good prep skills presentation? Do you think it needs to be historically significant? No. Do you think it needs to be hugely inspirational? It could be. Yeah, someone's story could be very inspirational. It could be instructional, but we're not asking you to give a great speech that's going to be the next best thing on TED Talks. Okay, we just want you to practice. That's all we want you to do. We just want you to have a go. And what you'll see on Moodle is this fabulous example of a prep skills presentation. So very, very kindly, Jaden has given permission for us to use this video of his presentation he did on Gladstone campus a few years ago. It's not perfect, but he's had a go and he's learned from his experience and how he might improve over the coming years as he refines his presentation skills. So have a look at this and think about, hopefully it gives you some confidence in you having a go too. It's not bad. There's some really good points, things that he's done in here, aren't there, Lois? He's done some really good things, but his manner is a little bit humble, which makes you think that maybe it's not quite as good as it is. But watch carefully. It's a really good example, especially for those people who are not feeling so confident. So what we can say about what makes a great presentation in prep skills is one where you just do your best. Yeah. Great question, Hannah. Hannah asks, sorry, it slipped back. Let me just have a look. So Hannah asks, I don't see an oral presentation in the prep skills subject outline assessment area. Is this something that we're getting marked on? So normally I'd address this at the end of the lecture, but I'll do it now seeing you've asked, Hannah. This is not a marked assessment. However, it is an experience you need to go through because you need to write about your experience in Learning Portfolio B. So in Learning Portfolio B, Module 7, there are all of the questions for the module relate to your reflections on giving an oral presentation. I'll get more to the oral presentation at the end.
I just popped it in the chat that's the case, and I think there's 6 questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yes, good question, good critical thinking as you're listening here. Well done, those people. So let's get on to some tips about oral presentations. Okay, there's 3. So this is guiding your note-taking, right? So the first thing you do, oh, surprise, surprise, you need to be clear about the task. Yeah. So be very clear, and you know what that means. You need to think about the purpose of your talk. Are you giving information? Are you presenting a social issue where you want to persuade people in a particular direction? Are you setting people a challenge, or are you entertaining? Is it just entertainment? Think about who your audience is. If you're presenting to your class on campus, then think about the language that you use. You might be talking about your STEPS experience and what brought you to STEPS. So you can assume that people know some things about STEPS. But if you're presenting that same thing to your family at home, then you'll need to add some more information perhaps about what STEPS is. Similarly, if you're, let's say you're a physiotherapist in your current life, if you give a presentation about a particular, say, disorder, then you and you do that to a group of people at your workplace, then you'll use a lot more jargon. If you're presenting that same talk to your class on campus, for example, then you would break down some of that technical language into something that's more simplified for your audience. So keep your audience clearly in mind, because it will change the type of language and maybe the level of complexity that you use in your talk. And your topic. So for this, usually, when we have an assignment at university, then we're given a topic and we'll need to unpack that so that we can address it correctly. However, for this task, you get to choose your topic. So part of this feeling comfortable with this experience is we want you to find a topic that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, that you can easily, that you don't have to research or spend a lot of time researching. So remember, you can choose something that's quite familiar to you. Having something familiar as your topic means that if you get up in front of your audience and suddenly you draw a blank, then you're more likely to be able to access that information and retrieve it and recover in your talk than if you're doing something on a topic that you don't know very well. So the beautiful thing about this activity is that you're in control of the topic and the information. So you might have thought of a topic already. So Kane might be talking about his vegetable garden in the tropics, but some of you might have a few ideas that you want to run through. So just brainstorm, first of all, a range of ideas, and then once you've chosen your topic, then brainstorm around that so you can think about the different things that you might want to talk about. And then you might want to research your topic. However, just remember that you have 12 hours for Module 7, and your preparation for your oral presentation should kind of fit within that 12 hours. So don't spend weeks and weeks preparing on this task. If you're going to do some research, just remember to honour your schedule. Okay. So we've made the research topic optional, and this is why we'd also like you to choose something that's more familiar to you. How are the questions going in the chat around this?
There's none.
There's none. Oh, you're riveted? Fantastic.
I'm not busy. Which is
okay. So this is tip 1. Be clear about the task. There's 5 points there. Hope you've got them all. Let's go to tip 2. Be prepared. So just like if you were preparing for a written assignment, then you should prepare an outline or a plan of some kind. You should write a rough draft, and you should think about the structure. So this is the same approach that you'd use for a written assignment. Remember, this is a communication activity, and we're thinking about being more professional in our communication. So we expect you to be well prepared. It needs to be well edited, all of those sorts of things. The other thing that's important about this preparation, particularly for this experience, is that you will need to submit your written version or your speech with your Learning Portfolio B. So you must go through this stage here. You don't need to send us the plan, but you do need to send us a copy of your speech. So let's have a look at the structure of your speech and what we expect. Similar to an essay, we expect an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And all of this is in the module, in the study guide. And just to help you a little bit, these are the types of things that we'd like to see in each of these sections. So in the introduction, we want you to tell the audience basically what it's about, give them a little roadmap of what your talk is going to be about. And it's good to include something to grab the audience's attention to set up the topic. So those who are feeling more confident might start with a joke. That's often how we're told to start a presentation, right? But it could be that you just ask a question. Who's been to Thailand? Who grows their own vegetables? What do you prefer, cats or dogs? Okay. Set up something to create some tension and get the audience's mind focused on your topic. You might just start with an image that is generating some curiosity about your subject. Once you've done that, once you've set up your talk, then you'll move to the body. So you'll develop a few main points, as the slide says, and usually 3 or 4 is enough. We only want you to talk for 3 or 4 minutes. This is only a practice. It's really short. So 3 or 4 points will be more than enough for that length of time. As you move from point to point, then take the audience with you. And you can do that by using what we call cohesive ties or signposts. So you might say the first point, the second point, finally for your third point. So use those word signposts to take your audience on the journey with you. Don't just slam them with a shopping list of facts. So using these signposts can help clarify how you move through the information. It will make it logical, especially for those sequential kind of people out there. And it adds interest because those cues take the reader to go, oh, what's next? So once you've dealt with all, sorry, Lois, go on.
Yeah. And I think you've answered them or I've answered them or both. So when are the speeches planned to be presented? If you're on campus, your support lecturer, Virginia and I would work out with you over the next 3 weeks or so to get those done during class tutorial time. If you're an online student, you will need to present to some family and friends or whomever you choose. You need probably 2 people plus. And the length of time, we covered that. Who do we present to? I think we just covered that. And yeah, any other questions regarding whom or where or how long? Good.
Okay. Yep, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye out for your questions. And don't forget, at the end of the lecture, we'll have some question and answer time if people want to hang back a little bit too. So after you've delivered your 3 or 4 main points, then we expect you to sum up as well. So there's a conclusion. So some people like to go back to the grab. So they might revisit the picture that they've used. They might give an extra punchline around the joke that they've introduced, or they might go back to the question that they asked you at the beginning. So going back to the grab is a nice way to create a nice circular format for the presentation as a whole. The other thing you could do is leave a list of recommendations or with a take-home message to think about. So this structure is nothing unusual for most people. It's fairly logical, right? Yeah, good, Brock. Thank you. I like to see you nodding. So there's nothing new there really. But remember, if you're stuck, then you can always turn to your support lecturer for some help. So to help you with this structure, there is a template on Moodle to help you, but I suspect that most people have that structure in their head, and so that you'll be able to innovate on that. But if you can't remember the cues that we've given you, come back to the lecture, but they're also in this template. So remember, we're still in tip 2, right? We've been through tip 1, we're still in tip 2, still preparing. So now we want you to think about, once you've got your plan in place, you need to think about the types of supports that your presentation will give. So some people choose just to talk without any props of any kind, but it is useful considering that most of us are visual learners, right, to have some visual aids to help your audience understand things better. Having visual aids also help you keep your place in your talk and might prompt you for different points if you are feeling a bit nervous and might forget, yeah? So make sure that you prepare some visual aids, prepare your notes. So most people will have a speech they will refer to, but it's better not to stand there and read those notes out. The better way is to have some cue cards for yourself. So you might have a series of cards numbered with the key points for each of your main points. And these are not designed to read through. So you won't just take blocks of your speech and put them onto the cards. You'll have key points there or other little cues to help you remember where you are in your talk. Maybe there's little notes there to help you remember to when to click slides through on your PowerPoint if you're going to use PowerPoint, or other little cues for you, like pause for laughter if you're confident with your jokes. The other thing you need to do to be prepared is to time your presentation. So remember, you only have 3 or 4 minutes, 4 minutes maximum. We won't be cruel like some other lecturers that you might meet in your undergraduate studies where they'll cut you off when your time's up. If they cut you off when your time's up, it means you don't get to complete your presentation, you don't get to deliver your whole message. And so that can impact on a score. So it's good to practice timing your presentation, which means what, people? If you're practicing the timing, what does it mean you have to do? Rocks straight onto the keyboard. What's he written?
Rehearse.
Rehearse. That's right. Rehearse. Rehearsing will help you lock your presentation into your brain. It'll become more automatic. Rehearsing will allow you to see whether you fit into the time frame. Rehearsing will give you confidence in your abilities. Rehearsing in front of other people means you'll get early feedback too, so that you can amend it before your real presentation.
And
so
other people have got timing their speech and recording themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Lois. So, yeah, timing your presentation, rehearsing in front, like on your by video, is also a really sometimes confronting, but a really good way to practice. The other thing that you need to think about, and there is a question in the learning portfolio about this, is about setting up your environment. So often if students are presenting on campus, then classrooms are kind of already set up for presentation style things. But students who are presenting on campus often forget to check out the technology and practice with the technology beforehand. Not practicing with technology means that things get mucked up and it is very, very time consuming. So setting up your equipment is really important, even if you're in a classroom setting on campus. If you're presenting at home, then you need to think about your audience comfort, if they can see your visuals, if you're standing or sitting in a way where they can hear you properly. There are a whole lot of things that you need to think about to make sure that your audience's needs are met as an audience, but also your needs are met as a presenter. Think about how you might need to change the room around a little bit and so on. So think carefully about setting up your area that you're going to present in.
Kane's just added that slide transitions are important.
Yes, that's right. Are you commenting on our slide transitions, Kane? I saw you laughing as you were writing that too. That's cool. Tip 3.
To have a little bit of a link between one slide and the other, like you might talk about one main point and then you might just talk about another main point. So you might say secondly or something.
That's right. So those signpost words that we were talking about earlier are important between slides. Yes. So tip 3, practice, practice, practice. it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. The more you practice, then the more comfortable you'll feel with the presentation, the more comfortable you'll feel with the technology. And it's the best way to overcome any anxiety that you're feeling around it. I'm not saying that will get rid of all anxiety, but it will help reduce that anxiety level. What are the comments at the moment, Lois?
Liliana has just mentioned that when at home and you need to record your speech, you could download a teleprompter. I'm not sure how to do that, but I'm sure you can. And then Kyle said that we can use video content we create ourselves, like interviews with students or teachers. That's a question. Okay, can we use video content we will create ourselves, like interviews with students or teachers? I haven't had that question before, I don't think, Virginia.
Sorry, was it you, Kyle? No, we prefer that you're talking. This is about your presentation. So video content would not be included in the 3 or 4 minutes. So we want you to practice speaking directly to an audience. Sorry. I see Hannah's also asked if you need to include a reference list. Look, it's always good to acknowledge the sources that you've used. So remember, with visual material, visual content is always also someone else's idea. So if you use an image from the internet, you need to source where it's from. It's good practice to always acknowledge your sources.
But Virginia, if the student was going to say use 2 or 3 references, would we require them to create a reference list at the end?
Have a go. It's good practice, but don't be worried about doing the full Harvard reference if you haven't done that yet. Essay writing students, on the other hand, I reckon you could put together a reference list. You know what to do. But if you haven't done essay writing yet, just put URLs. That's fine, as long as you've acknowledged them in some way. Great questions, people. Okay, so I know that people's, especially people who are particularly anxious about speaking in front of other people, I think that people's anxiety levels are going up a little bit, but remember that it's natural to be nervous. I still get nervous presenting to people. I'm sure most of us do, but try and use that nervous energy and channel it. Okay, find ways to put little things into your presentation that will help you mitigate that anxiety or nervousness too. So having a joke or having an image where people laugh is a great way to release your nervous energy. Having other people laughing or looking interested is really useful. So another talk that we've included for you is how to make stress your friend. But this is in module 8 on the Moodle side. I'm actually wondering whether that's actually module 6, Lois, because it's the stress one, isn't it? Let us get back to you about this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, so I think that's an old note. Yep, so have a look in both module 8 and module 6, people. But this is really good. She talks about power positions and how to change your body language so that you your body is actually reading the stress differently and using the stress differently. It's really, really good talk and good informational, instructional talk.
Yeah, we often talk about, Virginia, too, that stress is there for a purpose, and like your breathing and your sweaty palms and your butterflies and your tummy, it's all adrenaline. And you just need to know that it's there, and it's there for you to get up and talk and speak.
That's right. Yeah. Act in some way. Okay, so we've looked at 3 tips now. Now I want to talk about some common mistakes or common pitfalls. So not enough eye contact is something that people do often. And more often than not, it's because people are reading their notes. So Make sure that you try and avoid that by using something like palm cards, something with a brief outline of your text that you can, your speech that you can talk to. And this will allow you to look at your audience more. Another common mistake around eye contact, especially for those people presenting on campus, is that they'll look at the lecturer instead of sharing their eye contact around the room. And I know that might be a bit of a freak out for some people, but if you can just remember every now and again just to run your eyes around the room and make contact with different people, that will have a huge difference in the presentation. So not enough eye contact is one of the pitfalls. The speed of the speech is another pitfall. Some people's nervousness make them go and get it out as quickly as they can. It's really fast, but you lose all the nuance of the information. That timing that Kane talked about or Kyle talked about earlier gets lost. So we need to have some timing to allow for people to think, for people to respond, for people to react, or even if it's an internal reaction. On the other hand, too slow can also be a pitfall. You can imagine if someone is taking a long time to get to the point, they'll start looking at their watch, just like Chelsea did, and lose track of what they're saying. So too slow is also not conducive to getting your message across. Too long, we all know that we're expecting a 4-minute speech. Our brain's prepared for that. So if you start to go on and on, then people will start looking at their watch too. Not a introduction or a conclusion that's not strong enough can leave the information feeling a bit flat. If your introduction is a bit weak, then people won't be engaged enough for the information. And if your conclusion is hurried or a little bit weak, then you don't get to deliver that take-home message clearly enough. So even though you'll be focused on the information in the middle, don't ignore the power of the introduction and the conclusion. And then finally, another pitfall is poor body language. Someone who's hunched, someone who's not, who's got their body basically turned away from their audience won't get as a positive reaction as someone who's much more upfront and has used the body language tips from those videos that we've left up on Moodle for you. So avoid those common pitfalls. The next thing I want to talk about are the visuals. We really want you to incorporate visuals into your speech or your oral presentation. So I'm going to talk about PowerPoint first. So first of all, make it readable. I don't know if you've noticed, but most of our lecture slides have very little text or very highly organized text with a strong heading, and we use dot points. We know that this is much easier for people to take in the key points, and anything else is a bonus, right? So first of all, make it readable. See how clear this slide is? Keep it simple. This is also a very simple slide, very clear heading and some very short dot points. And each slide in the set should be consistent. Same background, same font text, same colors. Everything is simple. It's much easier for the audience's brain to keep connection with your talk and the visuals that support it. The other thing is to match design to purpose. So, for example, if you're talking, I'm trying to think of a heavy kind of topic without triggering anyone. If you're talking about, help me, Lois, I'm stuck.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so you're not going to use like a very floral kind of background for some heavy material, are you? Or vice versa. You're not going to use some goth kind of heavy metal images if you're talking about coriander growth, for example. Or maybe you are, I don't know. But just be aware that your design should match the purpose of your talk. Sorry, that was much more long-winded than I intended it to be.
I was just going to say, Virginia, I've just been teaching in business, and we talked about 6x6 rule when we're using PowerPoint. So no more than 6 words and no more than 6 dot points.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a great tip. Yep, good. So
Coriander is green.
yeah, so PowerPoint, and I think this is what you guys were talking about earlier. Don't use all the different little things you can do in PowerPoint to dazzle your audience, okay? You can see that rolling in heading, that might be fine if you use it for every slide, but look at all of that color and different fonts and so on. It's just perplexing to the brain. And we know too that those people with neurodivergency can't always comprehend information when we have all of those really bright graphics and even different kinds of fonts, complex kind of fonts. So keep things simple because it makes it more accessible to the rest of your audience as well. Choose fonts that are easy to read. Small and red is not necessarily very comprehensible to a wide range of people. One of the most common mistakes in creating a presentation is to put too much information on the slide. This distracts the audience from the speaker, just as you are now, and audiences are generally more receptive to the spoken word with reinforcement from the text rather than the other way around. And did you get a hint on the other thing that I'm trying to tell you here? Is it try not to just read from your slide. It's not useful. The audience can read mostly, so don't use a lot of text and then just read it from the slide either. So let's go to something that is useful, and that's the use of graphics. So if you wanted to, in a 3 or 4 minute talk, you could just use this infographic and you could spend 3 or 4 minutes talking about each of these different aspects and focusing on one at a time. So just using graphic information can be really powerful, and especially for more global learners, this would be a really nice way to operate. So that gets the PSU tick of approval. Another really good thing to do is to include key terms or definitions. So remember before we talked about the purpose and your audience. So if your audience is not as technically adept at the topic as you are, then this is a good thing to do. So for example, you might say, using the same climate change topic, is talk about carbon footprint and then give an actual definition of what that might be. So this also gets the PSU tick of approval. So the other thing you might do is just give a very topical kind of image too. So again, we're on the topic of climate change, right? So as a grab, how good is this if you're going to start to talk about climate change? That just depicts it in a funny way, even though it's a horrific process that we're going through. I love that.
Yeah, it's very fit for purpose, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's like, yeah, evocative. I'm in, I'm listening to you. So we've talked about PowerPoint, but remember that PowerPoint is not everyone's cup of tea, and it might not suit the purpose of your talk either. So you might want to use the whiteboard. So you might be a visual kind of person and want to do a series of diagrams or flow charts. In my class last term, a student was learning Japanese, or had been learning Japanese, and now is moving to Chinese. So her presentation was on those characters used in those alphabets. So she used the whiteboard for her talk for the most part. You might want to use props. So another example from a class in Cairns was Jodie showed us how to make kombucha. So she set up a table, she brought in all her what's it called? Scooby mother whatever it's called, the thing that kombucha grows from. And then thank you, Kate. I knew you'd know. I looked straight at you. Yes, not Scoobies, that's right. So yeah, she set it all up, and then she gave us a taste, a little shot of kombucha too. So,
we have but similar, how to cook perfect white rice.
Oh, lovely. Without a rice cooker, I hope. Another showed us how he makes bread. This is pre-pandemic. Showed us how to make bread, but also brought in a loaf so that we could all have a taste. That was really nice. And so on. Some people just bring in photos or posters. They create a poster, or there's just pictures. I'm just trying to think. Someone talked about the influence of their grandfather on their lives, and so they had a series of pictures of their grandfather throughout their life.
We
his life.
Sorry, Virginia. One of our first presentations in Townsville was one student remembered her trip to India, and she brought pictures and posters. And she was Indian, and she dressed up in her sari, and it was lovely.
Yeah, and that's a common topic, isn't it, Lois? People talk about a holiday they've had and enjoyed, and so they've often got their own photos that they can use for that. Very little research is needed. It's just a matter of choosing the points that you want to cover. Sorry, Lois, go on.
Sorry, another one was a student and her family, young family, went right across from Townsville to the other coast, Western Australia. I was trying to remember the place, Port Hedland, and they went in. She went in convoy with her parents and all the places that they stopped at.
Nice.
It took about 3 weeks to get across, I think.
Yeah. What a great presentation. I'm just remembering another use of props that was interesting. So there was a man who had been very good at athletics before he had an injury, and so he brought in all of his running shoes right from his very first pair when he was like 2. So he had lined up all of these pairs of running shoes, which sounds confronting for your nose, but it wasn't at all. And then he talked about his history of his athletics career in relation to the shoes. And that was a really, really interesting way to present that history of his. I really enjoyed that one. So you don't have to use PowerPoint. There are different ways that you can present the visual aspects of your talk, but we do encourage you to have a visual aspect of your talk. It will help you get organized. It will help your audience have a better connection to your information as well. Okay, so let's look at the task more closely. So you need to deliver a speech, short talk for 3 or 4 minutes. For those people who are on campus, then you will probably do this on campus. Or if you're an online student, then you will need to find an audience of your choosing. I encourage you that if you're having trouble getting an audience together, that you get in touch with your support lecturer earlier rather than later. An important part of this task is that you must get feedback from your audience, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. You also need to self-evaluate. So I encourage everyone that before you start even planning your presentation, is that you go and have a look at the Module 7 questions in Learning Portfolio B. This will give you a really good idea of where to focus your energy so that you can come back and answer those questions well. We encourage you to self-evaluate so that you can do that through your rehearsal, but you'll also need to do that afterwards. Again, looking at those LPB questions, Module 7 will help you focus, give you a focus for your self-evaluation. So remember, all of this comes back to Learning Portfolio B and how you reflect on this experience. So remember, it doesn't have to be a perfect presentation for you to reflect well on it. A good reflection will actually work with the areas that you need to develop and practice to get better at it. So a perfect evaluation, a perfect presentation won't assist this process. And I'm sure Lois and I, like, we're practiced presenters, that if we gave a presentation, we would also find areas that we could develop. And Emma too. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out there, Emma. Okay, so let's look at the feedback sheet. So this feedback sheet you can download from Moodle, and you'll need to give everyone in your audience, or sorry, at least 3, let's aim for 3, at least 3 people from the audience, this feedback sheet. And it gives them some criteria to tick and flick on, but also add comments if they need to. So we'll ask you, and this also gives you a focus of things to practice on as you develop your presentation. So think about your stance and your gestures. This is where that body language aspect comes in. Think about how your voice is being used in the presentation. Think about whether you're too fast or too slow. Think about whether your volume needs to come up, or think about whether you're a shouter and maybe you need to bring the volume down a little bit. Notice how your voice goes up and down as you talk, rather than talking monotone all the way throughout. And also your fluency. Lots of pauses can create difficulty with meaning if you're not being fluent in how you present. Notice here there's eye contact involved, but also notice how it's linked with your use of notes. So what we want you to practice is not reading from your notes, but looking up and looking around to your audience every now and again. Okay, we understand that people feel nervous and the notes are very comforting, but just put some points in there every now and again where you can look up and just check in on your audience, right? These 3 criteria here are related to the structure of your talk. So we want you to focus on developing a good introduction, make sure the body of the talk is clear, logical, remember those signposts, and interesting as you can. And then we want you to focus on your conclusion as well. Use of visuals or props. We want you to make sure that you ask your audience if they have any questions at the end. The easiest way is to make a slide that asks for questions, and you won't forget, all right? And then we want you to stick to 3 to 4 minutes. So this feedback form is actually a really good guide form for you as well. Remember, about 3 people to get feedback from, which is easy in a class setting. Might be a little bit harder if you're doing this as an online student. Sorry, Lois, go on.
Sorry, I just put that link in chat because sometimes I know that we have a tricky time finding it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. All right. So you might be in the position of giving someone else feedback too. So when you're giving feedback, try and find something positive to say. Don't just criticize. It's always good to start with something positive and then see if you can phrase any suggestions for development in the most positive way possible. Oops, wrong way, beg your pardon. And be really realistic about who your presenters are in this unit. We are not Mahatma Gandhi. We are not Julia Gillard. We're not practiced parliamentarians. We're not on the TED Talk stage here. You are all pre-undergraduate students. Some people will be doing an oral presentation for the very first time in their lives. Remember that we're a supportive group here and we're going to support people in doing the best that they can. So our feedback should reflect that. So a really good measure to use is, how would you feel if someone said this to you? Now, I know that there's some people out there who love the harsh and direct feedback. We're thinking about people who are feeling nervous about this. So be as supportive as you can with your feedback. Any comments about that or anything else?
Kane has just said, don't say it's perfect if it needs work. And I think that's true too.
Absolutely.
We want honest feedback, but like you say, Virginia, we just need to frame it well. Something along the lines that would be helpful if you worked a lot, kept working on eye contact, right? Not just increasing eye contact with the audience.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean,
Beautiful.
I don't want to say that it's perfect and you made really good eye contact when you know you just read from speech all the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent point, Kane.
I was just gonna jump. Sorry, Virginia. I was just gonna jump in there and just add one other thing. And this is based on some of the feedback that the students receive from their learning portfolio, and it was identifying, not necessarily like Lois suggested, not ignoring the white elephant in the room, addressing it, but the students indicated they really liked the feedback that they received as it was delivered as an opportunity for improvement. So maybe framing it, this was particularly great, and your response could have been or your presentation could have been enhanced even further by. So framing it perhaps with an opportunity for improvement, I think, is a positive way to approach that.
Absolutely.
Good enough.
So this also means that you'll receive feedback, and remember too that if you're receiving it from other prep skills students, that prep skills students are not necessarily as developed in giving feedback as your lecturers are. So remember to take that feedback gently as well, or with not with a grain of salt, but remembering that people are not, sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied in my words here, are not practiced necessarily giving good feedback.
You don't want to leave someone with a horrible feeling, do you?
Exactly. So whatever tone the feedback has, just remember, take from it what you can learn. Okay, look for some common themes in there. Does your feedback all say that you need to use more eye contact? Did most of the feedback say that you were talking a little bit fast? Look for some helpful comments. Don't try and take the criticisms personally. And it's very easy for us to focus on what's been said that's negative. Remember to go back and look for the positive comments as well. Okay, because we've just told everyone to put positive comments there, they'll be there. Oh, have I gone the wrong way again? No. So the other thing is that you can record yourself, but remember this is for rehearsal and for self-evaluation purposes. You don't need to send the recording of your presentation to us. What we're interested in is your speech and also your reflections in LPB. But this is a really great way to practice before you present and to self-evaluate. So let's revisit what you can talk about again, some of these topics. So make sure it's something that you're familiar with. If you've got a hobby that you'd like to share. So I remember Janae showed us how she built her worm farms and how they just basically took over a backyard, apart from the vegetable patch. Some people talk about the sports that they're involved in or sports that they'd like to be involved in. Travel is a popular one. People's work is also popular, or people's voluntary work is also really interesting. We've had a couple of people come in their SES uniforms to talk about what they do there. We've talked about first aiders turning up in their uniforms and talking about their work there as well. You can talk about someone you admire. I talked earlier about someone's whose grandfather was an important role model for them. Had someone talk about their best mate and how they're a great person and the adventures that they've been on together. Or it might be someone who's more of a popular figure that you might want to talk about. A lot of people talk about their STEPS experience and what brought them here and what their future plans are. Some people talk about their future degree and why they're really interested in that. So your current experience as a student is also up for grabs as a topic. There's a really good section in the study guide that takes you on that little journey about how to choose your topic, but also how you can develop that topic. So it starts with a cluster, we move to the plan, the setup of their visuals and so on. read through that really carefully, especially if you're unsure about what you're going to choose to talk on. So it looks like this. This person started, their idea was to talk about their travels through France. So first they thought about everything or everywhere they went, what was most memorable, the year, who it was with, why France, and then some of the things that didn't work out so well. And no, they didn't talk about all of this. What they did was take out a few points that they thought was most interesting and then just focused on that. So it's really good to set out this kind of cluster to show all of the things that are possible that you could talk about in relation to the topic, but then you choose the 3 or 4 points that suit your audience and your purpose. Okay. Oh, more topics. My time volunteering at an animal shelter. We get lots in Cairns talking about yaps and pet health and wildlife rescue. Sewing as a hobby. Chips versus chocolate, a fun topic, which is better. I can't decide, I'm sorry. And the importance of colour. Whether crystals are really healing or not was another one that we had last term. Lots of interesting stuff.
Energy drinks versus water.
Yes, yep, so many things that you can talk about. Okay, so let's relate this to learning, or remember Learning Portfolio B. Remember it's due coming up soon. Remember to download the template, include a copy of your speech for this particular module. Have you thought about topic and structure? Have you thought about your setting and the audience? Are they suited to your purpose? Did you think about visuals and props and whether and how to make them the most effective for this particular activity? And your strengths and the areas needing improvement. So that will come out of your feedback as well as your self-evaluation. We also want you to think about your feelings as you started preparing, before your presentation, during the presentation, and after. And I want to emphasize, before you go on to Lois, I want to emphasize that we're talking about your feelings, not I felt like I could have done better, which is not a feeling. We want you to tap into your feelings here, because often it's the feelings that get in the way of your head and delivering a presentation well. Any comments in the chat, Lois, that we need to address?
There was a comment about, do you need to attach a PowerPoint? And I responded with that if you're an on-campus student, you didn't need to attach your PowerPoint, just a copy of your speech will be enough. You may wish as an online student perhaps to upload your PowerPoint, just so that you give the lecturer that's marking you more information. However, there's a limit on the size of the PowerPoint, which is, I cannot remember, but is on the details of Learning Portfolio B. So it says to you, and it will come back at you anyway and say that this is too big a file.
Yeah. All we require are your responses in Learning Portfolio B and your speech. If you want to, yes, you can upload your PowerPoint. Some people convert it to a PDF format, which reduces the size.
I was just going to jump in real fast, Virginia, and
sure.
Just some of the chitter-chattering that we've had in our room, and the students are, I think it's really important that students play to their strengths, play to perhaps a topic that they're confident with, choose something that they're passionate about, and that perhaps might try and alleviate some of the stress attached to the delivery, the presentation component of that task.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got one student. Summer, you don't mind if I share, do you? I've got one.
Too late if she does.
No, I just got it. Yes, it's okay. It's all good. So Summer has written a book called The Unknown, and she's using this opportunity to almost do it like a bit of a marketing presentation pitch to sell the book. We've got other students here that are passionate about photography, so they're going to be doing a presentation on photography. So I thought that that was just a nice little take-home share message from our little group here, but
Right.
perhaps around the selection of the topic might be a real opportunity there to alleviate some of the stress in the delivery.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Emma. So let's have a quick look. Has anyone got their topic ready to go? Has anyone got an idea of something that they might present about? Pop it in the chat now.
We have a couple earlier on.
Just while we're waiting for people to write, we might just look at a testimony from someone back in 2014. So I'll read this to you. I know I said don't read from text-heavy slides, but I'm about to do it. When I first read about Module 7 on the first week of STEPS, I was very nervous. I'd had some experience with public speaking and I was very nervous every time I'd had to do it. Working through the module helped me a lot. I think the fact that I could pick the topic for my presentation helped a lot, as I was confident with my topic, more so than past experiences of this kind. In the future, I know that preparation will go a long way to improving my presentation, as I understand that confidence with the topic and being prepared is the key to success. Students say things much better, more clearly than we do sometimes. Just another example. So this is Ben. Ben was a Cairns student. Ben is now a teacher in a local high school here. He's finished his STEPS in his teaching degree. And he said, by doing the oral presentation, I've been able to prove that past failures don't dictate my future. My fear of public speaking has diminished and my confidence has really grown. Yeah. I think that's really important, that practicing prove that past failures don't dictate my future. That's a really good message to take home, I think. This is a Gladstone student writing to Helen. I wanted to say a very big thank you for the oral presentation, preparation, content in prep skills. I used a lot of the skills I learned in prep skills this past semester to prepare for an interview I was invited to do for Aussie Bloggers podcast. And with the exception of some editing that had to be done due to technical difficulties, I think it went really well. So you can see how this little practice here at Prep Skills can help you in the outside world as well. So, in summary, don't forget Jaden, don't forget that he's a Prep Skills student, and this could be the standard that we're working with, right? So be clear about the task, be well prepared, think about the structure of your talk, and we've given you a document that you can work with if you've forgotten. Choose your props and visuals carefully, and we encourage you to practice with visuals. And practice, practice, practice. Not finished there. Remember to get your peer evaluation or your family or friends evaluation, and don't forget your self-evaluation. And remember that everyone is in this together. So out of the whole Prep Skills cohort, there'll be a lot of people who are feeling a bit nervous, but we're a community and we're a supportive community. So that feedback will reflect that supportive community. And another thing to remember, we can't all be great public speakers, but we can all get better at it. So it says good luck here, but I'm not a proponent of good luck. I'm a proponent of hard work and preparation. So I wish you hard work and preparation with this. Don't rely on luck, people. Rely on yourself, back yourself, okay? And then that's the way you can improve. Thank you, everyone. So,
good ideas here in chat for speeches.
Sure. Do you want to say a couple more before we finish the recording for the benefit of the people who'll watch this later?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Alice.
We've got entomology, how to make sauerkraut, the science behind hair bleaching, genetics, how it can save humanity and life itself, mental health or year 12 in COVID. Someone's got Chris Chan, but I'm not sure what that's referring to, Matt. Sarah says the importance of change. And then Lily has an idea for a local arts festival next year, and she was wanting to share that with some friends to see if they wanted to get involved.
Fantastic.
And
Great
that's-
ideas. Yeah.
Mm.
Sarah, I wonder if you'll talk about how to use an overlocker. That'd be good. All right. Oh, one of my favorite ones was how to fold a fitted sheet. That was fun.
I
It was
watched the
very
video.
practical. Yeah.
Mm.
And then another person who was a parachutist showed us how to fold a parachute correctly so it would open properly. A skill I never hoped to use. Anyway, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you feel comfortable about the task that is ahead of you, and that you've got good information to help you get there. I'm going to stop recording now.
Thanks, Virginia.